My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one keeping Christmas alive in my family. It wasn't because I had the most money. God knows my older brother Daniel and my younger sister Sophie earned far more than I did. It wasn't because I had children to spoil or a partner to impress. I didn't. I was single, and in my family's eyes, that somehow made me less. But every December, I made it my mission to create magic. I bought gifts for everyone, thoughtful ones, not just things grabbed off a clearance rack. I planned menus, baked cookies, and decorated my small apartment like it was straight out of a Hallmark movie. When my parents hosted, I helped pay for groceries. When Daniel and Sophie complained about expenses, I covered their share, without making a fuss. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself I was happy to give. But deep down, I wondered if anyone really saw me, or if they only saw what I provided. Last Christmas had already left a sour taste. Sophie had rolled her eyes at the necklace I bought her, muttering, "It's not really my style." Daniel's kids ripped through their presents so fast they barely glanced at the books and toys I carefully picked out. And my parents, well, they smiled, but I noticed how quickly they shifted the conversation to Daniel's new job and Sophie's wedding plans. Meanwhile, I sat there, the single daughter with no children, no fancy career, and apparently no value beyond the gifts under the tree. This year, I tried to push the doubts aside. I started shopping in October, carefully choosing presents for everyone. I bought Daniel a new smartwatch, Sophie a designer purse she'd been eyeing, my parents matching sweaters, and my nieces and nephews everything from art kits to a brand new gaming console. By the first week of December, my spare bedroom looked like Santa's workshop exploded. Then came the message. It was a Thursday evening. I had just finished wrapping a stack of gifts when my phone buzzed. It was a group chat with my parents, Daniel, and Sophie. My eyes scanned the message, my heart skipping a beat. From Sophie. "We've decided this year will just be immediate family. It's less stressful that way. So you're not invited, Em." I froze. My fingers tightened around my phone until my knuckles ached. Not invited? I stared at the words, my pulse racing. Surely it was a mistake. Surely they didn't mean it the way it sounded. I typed back. "What do you mean?" "I'm family." The typing bubbles popped up. Then Daniel replied, "You are, but you know how things are. You don't have kids, and honestly, it's just easier this way. Less chaos." Less chaos? Less chaos meant excluding me entirely? Before I could respond, my mom chimed in, "Don't take it personally, sweetheart. You'll see us another time. Christmas morning is just for the kids this year." My chest tightened, hot tears burning behind my eyes. Don't take it personally? They had cut me out of the holiday I lived for, the one time of year I felt like I belonged, and they told me not to take it personally? I stared around my apartment. At the tree twinkling in the corner. At the stacks of wrapped gifts labeled with their names. At the stockings I had bought for my nieces and nephews. My vision blurred. I thought back to every Christmas past. Every time I gave and gave, even when my own bank account was thin. Every time I smiled through loneliness just to make sure my family felt loved. Every time I told myself I mattered because I contributed. And now they were telling me I didn't matter at all. That night, I cried until my pillow was soaked. The kind of cry that racks your whole body, the kind that leaves you hollow afterward. But when the sun came up, something inside me hardened. They didn't invite me? Fine. But they wouldn't be unwrapping my gifts either. I walked into the spare bedroom, looked at the mountain of presents, and felt my jaw tighten. My family didn't want me, but they wanted what I provided. They wanted the smartwatch, the purse, the gaming console, the piles of toys and clothes. They wanted my sacrifices without me. Well, not this year. One by one, I packed everything back into boxes. My hands shook at first, but the more I worked, the steadier I became. By the time I taped the final box shut, my tears had dried. I loaded the boxes into my car, ignoring the ache in my chest. I drove across town to a local women's shelter. When I arrived, a volunteer came out to help unload. Her eyes widened as she saw the mountain of gifts. "Are you sure?" she asked gently. I nodded, my throat tight.
Yes.
These kids will appreciate them more than mine ever did. The words tumbled out before I realized the bitter truth in them. Together, we carried the gifts inside. And as I watched the volunteers sort them, as I imagined the faces of children who would wake up on Christmas morning with joy instead of disappointment, something inside me shifted. I had spent years pouring love into people who only saw me as a convenience. Now, my love would go to those who needed it. Back at home, my phone was buzzing with messages. From Sophie. Hey, the kids are asking what you got them this year. Did you drop the presents at Mom's? From Daniel. Yeah. Did you already bring the gifts over? The kids are excited. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I almost caved. Almost apologized for a decision they had forced me into. But then I remembered the shelter, the gratitude in the volunteers' faces, the image of children who would feel seen because of those gifts. So I typed back. Yes. I dropped them off. At the donation center. I hit send before I could overthink it. Silence. Then the typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, Daniel sent back. You can't be serious. Oh, but I was. And as I set my phone down, I felt a small, defiant smile curve my lips. This Christmas, for the first time in years, I wasn't the forgotten giver. I was the one in control. The moment I hit send, I half expected my phone to explode with calls. But for a long stretch, there was only silence. I busied myself around the apartment, making tea, tidying up the spare bedroom now empty of gifts. Without the shiny packages stacked neatly in the corner, the room felt bare. But strangely, I felt lighter. It wasn't until nearly midnight that the phone finally rang. My mother's name lit up the screen. I hesitated. For years, her voice had been my safe place, the one person I thought would always defend me.
But now?
Now she was part of the message that told me I wasn't wanted. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hello. Her voice was sharp, urgent. Emily, what did you do? I sat down at the kitchen table, my hands shaking only slightly. I donated the gifts. There was a pause, filled with disbelief. You what? You heard me, I said, my tone steady. I gave them to children who actually needed them. Kids who will be grateful. Emily, she snapped. How could you do that? Do you have any idea how disappointed your nieces and nephews will be on Christmas morning? They were counting on you. The laugh that slipped out was bitter. They were counting on me? That's rich, Mom. Because apparently, I don't count at all. You made it very clear I wasn't welcome. Her voice wavered. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I cut in. My throat tightened, but I pushed the words out. You told me not to come.
You excluded me.
And now you're upset that I'm not supplying the holiday for you? Silence. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped. Then she sighed heavily. Emily, you're being dramatic. This isn't about you. It's about the children. The children. Always the children. As if my worth was measured only by what I could give them. As if I had no value outside of the gifts under the tree. I have to go, I said flatly, and I hung up before she could respond. For the first time in my life, I hung up on my mother. That night, I slept like I hadn't in weeks. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Dozens of messages from Daniel and Sophie, alternating between disbelief, anger, and guilt-tripping. Daniel, you ruined Christmas. Sophie, how could you be so selfish? The kids will be heartbroken. Daniel again. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? I stared at their words, my jaw clenching tighter with each message. After everything we've done for you? What exactly had they done for me? Mocked my single status? Rolled their eyes at my gifts? Cut me out of the holiday altogether? By noon, Sophie called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was icy. Emily, what is wrong with you? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the blinking Christmas lights on my little tree. What's wrong with me? Sophie, you told me not to come. You said I wasn't invited. Did you really think you could exclude me and still expect my gifts to show up like magic? You're twisting things, she snapped. We just wanted a smaller Christmas. Less stress. You always make everything so big. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Big? You mean thoughtful. You mean generous. You mean the only reason those kids have a mountain of presents to tear through every year. Sophie scoffed. You're overreacting. It's not that serious. Not that serious? My voice cracked, rising despite my efforts to stay calm. You told me I wasn't wanted. Do you have any idea what that feels like? To be erased from your own family's holiday. Her silence was answer enough. I hung up again, my hands trembling. Over the next few days, the calls and messages kept coming. Guilt trips disguised as concern. Accusations disguised as reason. My parents begged me to reconsider, to at least bring something small for the kids. Daniel sent me a photo of his daughter's handwritten wish list with a note. Look at this. She's going to cry when she realizes Aunt Emily didn't come through. Every attempt was another knife twist. For years, I had given and given, thinking one day they'd see me. One day they'd value me. Instead, the moment I stopped providing, they painted me as the villain. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't go back.
Not this time.
Christmas Eve arrived. Normally, I would have been rushing between stores, finishing last-minute wrapping, and helping my mom in the kitchen. Instead, I sat alone in my apartment, a single candle flickering on the table beside me. It was quiet. Lonely, yes, but peaceful. Around 8 o'clock, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. Hello. Is this Emily Carter? The voice was warm, professional. I'm calling from the Haven House shelter. I just wanted to say thank you again for your donation. The children opened their presents tonight, and I wish you could have seen their faces. Pure joy. You made their Christmas, Emily. Tears welled in my eyes. My throat ached. Thank you for telling me, I whispered. After the call ended, I sat in the glow of my small tree, tears rolling down my cheeks, not from pain, but from something else. Relief. For the first time, my giving meant something real. Meanwhile, my family was spiraling. I didn't know until later, but on Christmas morning, Daniel's kids ripped through the few presents their parents had bought, their faces falling when Aunt Emily's pile wasn't there. Sophie's little boy apparently cried for hours, asking why I didn't love him anymore. And my parents? My mother sent me one final message. You've humiliated this family. I hope you're proud. I didn't reply, because I was proud, not of the pain I caused, but of the boundary I finally drew. They had taken my love for granted for too long. This year, I wasn't their doormat. I wasn't their endless supply of gifts. This year, I chose myself. And as I sat in my quiet apartment, sipping coffee and watching snow fall softly outside, I realized something important. I had given myself the best Christmas gift of all. Freedom. But I also knew the war wasn't over. Because families like mine don't let go of control easily. And when the new year came, the fallout would hit harder than ever. And I was ready for it. The week after Christmas felt like a blur. While the rest of the world posted photos of happy families in matching pajamas, my social media was silent. I avoided scrolling because I knew what I'd find. Pictures of my family gathered without me, smiling around the tree I wasn't welcome to sit beside. Instead, I focused on small, quiet joys. I baked cookies for myself. I watched old Christmas movies I used to love. I took long walks through the snowy park near my apartment. It wasn't the holiday I imagined, but it was mine. Still, the silence from my family gnawed at me. Not one Merry Christmas text. Not one call. Nothing but a cold void where my family used to be. That void finally shattered on New Year's Eve. I was curled up on the couch in sweatpants, sipping cocoa while the TV droned on in the background, when my phone rang. Daniel's name lit up the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello. His voice was sharp, brittle. Emily, do you realize what you've done? My stomach clenched. Good evening to you too, Daniel. This isn't funny, he snapped. The kids were devastated. Christmas was ruined. Do you understand that? They cried for you. They cried because you were selfish. The words stung, though I tried not to show it. Selfish. I repeated. Daniel, I bought gifts for those kids. I wrapped them, labeled them, and then you told me I wasn't invited. What was I supposed to do? Send them along like some delivery service? You could have put the children first, he hissed. But no, you had to make it about you. You embarrassed us. Embarrassed. That word rolled around in my mind like poison. That was what it came down to. Not that the kids were hurt, not that I was excluded, but that I had embarrassed them by daring to say no. I took a slow breath. Daniel, you and Sophie and Mom and Dad made a choice. You cut me out. I made a choice too. To stop being used. His laugh was bitter. Used? You act like we're villains. You chose to buy those gifts, Emily. Nobody forced you. I gripped the phone tighter. Nobody forced me to, but you expected it. Every year, you expected me to play Santa while you sat back. And the one time I said no, suddenly I'm selfish. He didn't respond. For a moment, all I could hear was his breathing. Then he said coldly, "Don't expect us to forgive this anytime soon. You've burned bridges, Emily, and you'll regret it." The line went dead. I sat there, my heart pounding. Regret? Maybe once I would have. Maybe a younger version of me would have begged for forgiveness, rushed to make amends. But not anymore. This wasn't regret. This was liberation. The new year started with icy silence. My family stopped reaching out entirely. I wasn't invited to birthdays, dinners, or even Sunday calls with my parents. It was as if I had been erased from their story. At first, it hurt. I won't lie. I cried myself to sleep more than once. I missed the laughter of my nieces and nephews. I missed the chaos of family dinners, even with all the barbs and dismissals. But then, something unexpected happened. I started to breathe easier. For the first time in years, I wasn't running myself ragged to please people who never saw me. I wasn't spending money. I didn't have to maintain appearances. I wasn't twisting myself into knots just to earn scraps of affection. I had space. Space to think. Space to remember who I was before my worth became tied to wrapping paper and bows. I signed up for a pottery class. I started jogging in the mornings. I even booked a solo trip for spring, something I never would have dared when my family controlled my calendar. It felt good. But of course, peace never lasts long when people like my family can't stand losing control. It started with whispers. A mutual friend pulled me aside after yoga class one day. "Emily," she said carefully, "I don't know if you know this, but your sister's been talking." My stomach dropped. Talking about what? About Christmas. About you. She's been saying you abandoned your family, that you're cold and bitter, that you cared more about your pride than your nieces and nephews. I clenched my fists, anger flooding me. Sophie, painting me as the villain while conveniently forgetting the part where she excluded me in the first place. It didn't stop there. Soon, I heard from an old coworker that Daniel had been ranting at a mutual acquaintance. Apparently, I was unstable and jealous of their family lives. Each rumor was a knife to the back. But instead of breaking me, it fueled me. They wanted to rewrite the story? Fine. But I still held the truth. And the truth was powerful. By February, the tension boiled over. I came home one evening to find a letter slipped under my door. No envelope. Just a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it, my hands trembling. "Emily, we've had enough of your drama. You've disrespected this family for the last time. Don't bother showing up for Easter, birthdays, or anything else. Until you apologize and admit what you did wrong, you're not welcome." My breath caught. They weren't just excluding me from Christmas anymore. They were cutting me out entirely. I sat down on the couch, the letter shaking in my hands. For a moment, grief washed over me like a tidal wave. They were my family, the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. And here they were, discarding me like trash. But then, beneath the grief, something else rose. Anger. Not wild, uncontrolled anger, but a sharp, icy clarity. They thought they could shame me into crawling back. They thought they could bully me into apologizing. They thought they still had power. They didn't. Because I had already given it away, every gift, every dollar, every ounce of sacrifice they took for granted. I'd given it to people who appreciated it. And now I was done giving anything to them. The next time Sophie called, I answered with a calmness that surprised even me. "Emily," she started, her tone dripping with false sweetness, "the kids really miss you. Maybe if you apologized." "No." I cut her off. She sputtered. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean," I said evenly, "I'm not apologizing. I'm not crawling back. You made your choice when you told me I wasn't invited. And I made mine when I gave those gifts to children who actually needed them. I don't regret it, Sophie. Not for 1 second." Her silence crackled over the line. Finally, she hissed, "You're pathetic. You'll end up alone." I smiled faintly, even as my heart ached. Better alone than used. And I hung up. It wasn't the end of the battle. I knew that. Families like mine don't stop until they've wrung every ounce of guilt from you. But something had shifted. For once, I wasn't a scared little sister, desperate to be included. I wasn't a single daughter, scrambling to prove my worth. I was Emily Carter, 32 years old. And I had finally learned that being excluded was better than being exploited. Still, I knew Easter was coming. And if I knew my family, they wouldn't let it pass without another attempt to twist the knife. And when that day came, I would be ready. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. Easter arrived with blooming daffodils and pastel-colored storefronts, but for me, it felt like a storm cloud was hanging over my head. It wasn't the holiday itself. I didn't care about chocolate eggs or baskets filled with fake grass. It was what the holiday represented. Another chance for my family to push me down. Another chance to remind me I didn't belong. I told myself I was prepared. After Christmas, and the letter slipped under my door, nothing could surprise me anymore. But deep down, I knew better. My family had a way of twisting the knife just when I thought the wound was healing. Sure enough, the week before Easter, my phone buzzed with a group message. From Sophie. "Easter brunch at Mom and Dad's.
Kids are excited.
We're doing a gift exchange. Keep it simple this time." I stared at the screen, heat rising in my chest. Keep it simple this time. As if I had been the problem. As if my generosity was a burden. And most of all, as if Christmas had never happened.
I didn't reply.
10 minutes later, another message came through, this one from Daniel. "We'll expect you by noon. Don't bring drama." My fingers itched to type back 1,000 biting responses, but I stopped myself. They wanted me rattled. They wanted me crawling back, desperate for scraps of approval. Not this time. I closed the chat and set the phone down. On Easter morning, I woke early and made myself a quiet breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and a cup of coffee. The sun streamed through my window, warm and golden. For the first time in months, I felt calm. I wasn't going. It wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about boundaries. About refusing to put myself back in the same position I'd fought so hard to escape. But around 11, my phone started buzzing again. First a call from my mom. Then from Sophie. Then from Daniel. When I didn't answer, the messages poured in. "Emily, where are you? You're making the kids worry. Stop being selfish. Get over yourself and come." Each one felt like déjà vu, a repeat of Christmas, but with new wrapping paper. I ignored them. Then, around noon, there was a knock at my door. My heart lurched. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole and froze. It was my parents. I opened the door slowly, my chest tight. "Mom?"
"Dad."
They looked uncomfortable, standing there in their Easter best. My mom clutched her purse, my dad shifting awkwardly beside her. "Emily," my mom said, her voice soft but edged. "We thought maybe you'd forgotten." "I didn't forget," I said quietly. "Then why aren't you there?" she pressed. "The family's waiting. The kids are asking for you." I swallowed hard. "Because I'm not welcome." "Not really. You told me that at Christmas." My dad sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I felt my hands tremble, but I steadied them against the doorframe.
"No.
I'm finally making it as simple as it should be. You cut me out, and I won't pretend it didn't happen just because Easter rolled around." My mom's lips tightened. "You're being stubborn." Families fight, Emily. But you don't just walk away. The words pierce me, sharp and unfair. Because that's exactly what they had done to me. I met her gaze, my voice trembling but firm. You walked away first. You decided I didn't matter unless I brought gifts. You told me not to come, and now you want me back because the kids are crying and your brunch feels incomplete. But I'm not a prop in your holiday pictures. I'm your daughter. And if you can't see that without a price tag, then maybe I don't belong there. Her eyes flickered with something, shame, maybe, or anger. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, my dad muttered, "Let's go." And they turned to leave. I closed the door, my heart pounding in my chest. For a moment, grief crashed over me again. I wanted to run after them, to beg them to love me the way I loved them. But another feeling rose stronger. Relief. For once, I had stood my ground. The next day, the fallout began. Sophie posted photos on social media. The family gathered around the Easter table, kids holding their baskets, everyone smiling brightly. The caption read, "Wonderful Easter with family. Missing some, but sometimes you have to cut out the negativity." I read the words over and over, my chest burning. Negativity. That's what I was now. Not a daughter, not a sister, not an aunt, just negativity to be cut out. Friends commented, "Beautiful family. So glad you had a great day." They didn't know the truth. But I did. And that truth was starting to harden into something sharp.
If they wanted to paint me as the villain, fine.
But I wasn't going to sit quietly and let them rewrite the story. In the weeks that followed, I kept my distance. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into friendships that actually nourished me. But my family's absence lingered like a ghost. One evening, I was out with a friend when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my cousin Rachel, the only relative who had ever quietly taken my side. "Hey, I just thought you should know. Daniel and Sophie have been telling people you've gone off the rails. That you're bitter and unstable. That you ruined Christmas and abandoned Easter." I didn't believe it, but others might. My stomach dropped. They weren't just excluding me. They were smearing me. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Anger roared through me, hot and unrelenting. I had tried to walk away quietly, to let them have their picture-perfect holidays without me. But now they were attacking my name, my character. I couldn't let it stand. The next weekend, I made a decision. I went to the shelter where I had donated the Christmas gifts. I spoke with the director, asked if they'd be willing to share some of the stories from that night. The joy, the gratitude, the way those presents had changed the children's holiday. They were more than happy to oblige. They gave me photos, testimonials, even handwritten notes from kids thanking the anonymous Santa who had shown up when no one else did. I posted it all online with a single caption, "This is where my Christmas gifts went." To children who truly needed them. To families who appreciated them. Not to people who cut me out and called me selfish. I don't regret a single thing. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of comments from friends and acquaintances poured in. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me privately to say how proud they were, how inspiring it was that I stood up for myself. And just like that, the narrative shifted. My family had tried to paint me as bitter and unstable. But now, the world saw the truth, a woman who had turned betrayal into generosity. For the first time in months, I felt powerful again. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because people like Daniel and Sophie don't take kindly to being exposed. And I could already sense the storm brewing. When I made that post about donating the Christmas gifts, I thought it would be the end of it. A final statement, a line in the sand. But instead, it was the beginning of a new war. At first, the responses were overwhelmingly supportive. Friends, coworkers, even distant acquaintances messaged me to say how proud they were. "You did the right thing," one wrote. "Don't let anyone guilt you into believing otherwise." Another said, "It's inspiring to see someone stand up for themselves, especially against family." For a few days, I felt vindicated.
Seen.
But then the other side began to speak. Sophie posted a long, carefully written Facebook status about how family ties should matter more than pride. She wrote about selfish relatives who turned their backs on innocent children. She didn't use my name, but she didn't need to. Everyone who read it knew who she was talking about. Daniel chimed in, too, commenting things like, "It's sad when people care more about attention than family." And my mother, my own mother, shared Sophie's post with the caption, "Disappointed, but praying for her." That last one broke something in me. Disappointed.
Praying for me.
As if I was lost, broken, in need of saving, when really, all I had done was refuse to be used. The comments section lit up. Some people defended me, pointing out the hypocrisy. But others sided with my family. Neighbors I'd known since childhood wrote things like, "Shameful. How could she do that to her parents? Ungrateful." It was like watching my reputation unravel in real time. I tried to brush it off, to remind myself that I knew the truth. But it's hard to stay calm when your own blood is rewriting your story. One night, after reading one too many barbed comments, I slammed my laptop shut and whispered to the empty room, "Enough. If they want a war, they've got one." That weekend, I started gathering receipts. Literal receipts. I dug through drawers and folders, pulling out bank statements and credit card records. Every December, I had spent hundreds, sometimes thousands, on gifts, groceries, decorations. All for my family. I highlighted the biggest purchases: the gaming console, the designer purse, the flights I paid for when Sophie claimed she couldn't afford tickets one year. Then I pulled out photos. Dozens of them from past Christmases. Pictures of Daniel's kids surrounded by piles of gifts from me. Sophie showing off jewelry I bought her. My parents unwrapping expensive items with smiles. I posted them in an album online with a single caption. "For those who think I'm selfish, here's what I've given, year after year." This isn't about gifts, it's about respect. And respect should never have to be bought. It was nuclear. Within hours, the comments exploded. Some people were stunned. "I had no idea you did all that," one friend wrote. Others were furious on my behalf. "They used you like an A-team," another said. My family went silent. Not a word from Sophie, Daniel, or even my mother. For the first time, they had no defense. But silence doesn't mean surrender. A few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Emily." The voice was low, tense. It was my father. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Take the post down." I gripped the phone tighter. "Why should I?" "Because you're humiliating this family," he snapped. "It's bad enough you made a scene at Christmas, but now you're airing dirty laundry for the world to see." I felt my pulse quicken. "It's not dirty laundry. It's the truth." His voice hardened. "The truth doesn't matter if it destroys your family's name. Do you really want to be the reason people look at us differently?" Something inside me cracked then, not from guilt, but from clarity. That was all it had ever been about. Appearances. Their name. Their reputation.
Not me.
Never me. I took a deep breath. "Dad, I'm not the reason people look at you differently. You are. You cut me out. You treated me like a bank account. I'm just done hiding it." Before he could respond, I hung up. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. The weeks that followed were quiet on the surface, but I could feel the tension buzzing underneath. My family stopped trying to contact me directly, but I knew they were plotting. Every so often, I'd hear through the grapevine that Daniel had been bad-mouthing me at church, or that Sophie told her coworkers I was mentally unstable. I stopped caring. Or at least I told myself I did. Instead, I focused on building something new. I volunteered more at the shelter where I had donated the gifts. I made friends with other women there, people who knew what it felt like to be dismissed, overlooked, discarded. And slowly I began to feel whole again. But then Easter passed and summer crept in, and I knew another battle was coming. Because my parents' wedding anniversary was in June. And in my family, that was always a big deal, a party, a dinner, an excuse to gather and show off. And something told me they wouldn't let it pass without trying to punish me again. Sure enough, in early June, I got a text from my mom. "We're celebrating our anniversary next weekend. We'd like you to come, but only if you're ready to apologize." I stared at the message, fury bubbling in my chest. Apologize? After everything they had done, after cutting me out, smearing my name, demanding I crawl back, now they wanted me to apologize? I typed back one sentence. I'll be there, but don't expect the gift you wanted. I hit send and smiled. Because if they thought Christmas was the only time I could deliver a surprise, they had another thing coming. The night of the anniversary dinner, I dressed carefully. A simple black dress, understated jewelry, hair neat but not flashy. I wanted to look composed, steady. When I walked into the restaurant, heads turned. My family was seated at a long table, laughter dying down as they saw me approach. "Emily," my mother said, her voice tight. "I wasn't sure you'd come." I smiled faintly. I said I would. Daniel and Sophie exchanged smug looks, as if expecting me to crumble, to beg. I didn't. I handed my parents a neatly wrapped box. They unwrapped it together, smiles plastered on their faces, until they opened it. Inside was a photo album. But instead of family pictures, it was filled with printouts of my bank statements, receipts, and photos of the gifts I had bought over the years. Each page labeled with the year and the total amount I had spent. "This," I said calmly, "is my gift to you. Proof of everything I gave, year after year, while you treated me like I didn't exist." The table went silent. My father's face flushed red. My mother's smile faltered. Sophie's mouth hung open. "And Daniel?" he muttered. "You're insane." I met his gaze evenly.
No.
"I'm done being your fool." I stood up, smoothed my dress, and walked out. For once, I didn't look back. After the anniversary dinner, I thought there would be an explosion. Some screaming match in the parking lot, a barrage of furious texts, maybe even one of my parents showing up at my door. But instead,
Silence.
for 3 days, not a word. At first, I wondered if maybe they'd finally gotten the message that I was done being their punching bag, their ATM, their emotional scapegoat. But deep down, I knew better. My family never surrendered. They plotted. On the 4th day, I got my answer. A mutual friend, Claire, called me. She sounded hesitant, almost guilty. "Emily, I think you should know something. Your brother's been telling people things about you." My stomach tightened. "What kind of things?" She sighed. "That you've always been jealous. That you're unstable. That you spent money on gifts because you were desperate for attention. He even said you might have a drinking problem." I nearly dropped the phone. "A drinking problem? I barely have a glass of wine once a month." "I know," Claire said quickly. "I don't believe it. But others might. He's saying it at church, at work events. He's painting you as the crazy one." I sat in stunned silence, fury rising in my chest like fire. They had taken my generosity, twisted it, and now they were twisting me. "Thanks for telling me," I whispered. After we hung up, I sat on my couch, fists clenched, heart racing. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was character assassination. And I wasn't going to let them win. Over the next week, the rumors spread. Old friends started reaching out awkwardly, asking if I was okay. A coworker made a joking comment about me needing coffee instead of wine at 9 in the morning. Everywhere I turned, I felt the sting of Daniel's lies. I wanted to scream, to blast him publicly, but I forced myself to wait, to think,
To plan.
because revenge wasn't about anger. It was about timing. Then came the breaking point. One Saturday morning, I went to the grocery store. As I stood in the produce aisle, I heard a familiar voice. Such a shame. She was always the odd one, you know. Never married, no kids, throwing money around to compensate. It was only a matter of time before she snapped. I turned my head slowly. It was Sophie, standing with another woman I didn't recognize, a basket on her arm. And
She was talking about me.
loudly. My face burned. I wanted to storm over, to unleash years of pent-up rage. But instead, I smiled coldly and walked right up to her. "Funny," I said, my voice steady, "how I keep hearing about myself from everyone except you. If you have something to say, Sophie, you could say it to my face." Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Emily, I didn't see you there." "Clearly," I replied. "But don't worry, I heard every word." The other woman shifted uncomfortably, mumbling an excuse and walking away. Sophie glared at me. "Why are you following me around?" I laughed. "Following you? You're the one who can't stop talking about me. Tell me, does it make you feel better to tear me down? Does it help you sleep at night?"
She scoffed.
"Don't play the victim. You humiliated this family. You ruined Christmas. You embarrassed Mom and Dad at their anniversary dinner. People deserve to know the truth." "The truth?" My voice rose, sharper now. "The truth is that you and Daniel used me for years. You treated me like I was worthless except for what I gave you. And when I finally stopped, you couldn't handle it. So now you call me crazy? Desperate? A drunk?" Her face flushed red. "Maybe if you had a husband or kids, you'd understand. You wouldn't be so bitter." That cut deeper than I wanted to admit. But I didn't let her see it. Instead, I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Careful, Sophie. You've underestimated me once already. Don't do it again." Then I walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of the produce aisle, fuming. That night, I pulled out my notebook, the same one I had scribbled in the night after Christmas. And I began to write. Not just my feelings this time.
Facts. Timelines. Receipts.
Every time they excluded me. Every time they mocked me. Every dollar I spent. Every cruel word. It wasn't about proving myself to them anymore. It was about reclaiming my story. And maybe, just maybe, making sure the world saw them for who they really were. The chance came sooner than I expected. The shelter I had donated to at Christmas was hosting a fundraiser in July. They asked if I'd be willing to speak about my experience, why I chose to donate, what it meant to me. At first, I hesitated. Talking about my family publicly felt dangerous. But then I realized they had already dragged my name through the mud. What did I have to lose? So I said yes. The night of the fundraiser, the hall was packed with community members, local leaders, even a few reporters. I stood on stage, hands trembling slightly as I gripped the microphone. I told them my story. I didn't use names, but I didn't have to. I spoke about being excluded from Christmas, about how my gifts were taken for granted, about how I decided to reclaim my power by giving to children who truly needed it. By the time I finished, the room was silent. Then came the applause, loud, long, genuine. Afterward, people approached me. They shook my hand, thanked me, even hugged me. The director of the shelter told me donations had surged during my speech. For the first time, I felt not just vindicated, but celebrated. And I knew my family would hate every second of it. Sure enough, the fallout came fast. Sophie posted online again, ranting about people who twist family matters for attention. Daniel commented with his usual venom. My parents stayed quiet, but I heard from Rachel, my cousin, that they were mortified. Good. Because for once, the embarrassment wasn't mine to carry. But even as I savored that small victory, I knew the battle wasn't over. Because people like Daniel and Sophie don't stop when they're cornered. They lash out harder. And I could already feel it coming, the desperate, final blow they'd try to land to break me once and for all. The question was, would I let them? I closed my notebook, set down my pen, and whispered to myself, not this time. This time, I'll be ready. The fundraiser changed everything. For months, I had been the villain in my family's story, selfish, unstable, bitter. But the night I stood in front of strangers and shared my truth, I felt something shift. For the first time, people saw me not as a failure or a burden, but as someone strong. Someone who turned betrayal into generosity. I walked off that stage lighter than I'd felt in years. But the peace didn't last long. 2 weeks later, I came home from work to find an envelope taped to my door. My heart sank before I even opened it. Inside was a letter.
Short. Cruel.
Emily, we've had enough of your attacks. If you continue smearing this family, we will take legal action. You've embarrassed us in public, twisted stories for your gain, and spread lies. Stop now or face the consequences. Daniel and Sophie. I laughed. Out loud. The kind of laugh that bubbles up not from humor, but from disbelief. Legal action? For telling the truth? I dropped the letter on the counter, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down. My hands shook, but not from fear. From adrenaline. This was their last card. Threats. Intimidation. Desperation. But they didn't realize something. I wasn't afraid anymore. The next day, I met with a lawyer. A kind woman named Janet, recommended by a friend. I showed her the letter, my posts, the rumors being spread about me. She read everything carefully, then looked up with a faint smile. Emily, they don't have a case. You haven't defamed them. You haven't used names. You've shared your experience. That's your right. Relief washed over me. But Janet wasn't finished. In fact, she added, if they keep spreading lies about you, accusing you of drinking, instability, things that hurt your reputation, you could have a case against them. The idea stunned me. Suing my own family? It felt extreme. But then I thought about everything they had done, cutting me out, using me, smearing me. Why should I keep playing defense? Maybe it was time to go on offense. I didn't rush. Instead, I gathered more evidence. Screenshots of Sophie's posts. Messages from friends who heard Daniel's rumors. Notes in my now thick notebook, detailing every slight, every exclusion, every manipulation. And slowly, an idea formed. I didn't want money. I didn't even want an apology. What I wanted was simple. To take away their power. To make sure the next time they tried to twist the story, no one would believe them. So, I decided to tell the story one final time.
Completely. Publicly.
The shelter fundraiser had sparked something. Local reporters had covered it, highlighting the donations the families helped. A journalist had even asked if I'd be willing to do a follow-up piece. At the time, I'd hesitated.
But now?
I said yes. I sat down with the reporter, a young woman named Claire, and told her everything. Not just about Christmas, but about years of being used, dismissed, mocked. About how my family measured my worth only by what I provided. About how they cut me out when I stopped playing along. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The article ran online first, then in print. The headline made my heart ache and swell all at once. From betrayal to generosity, how one woman turned family exclusion into a gift for strangers. The response was overwhelming. Strangers emailed me, thanking me for sharing. Other women confided that they, too, had been treated like less in their families. Donations to the shelter surged again. And my family? They fumed. Sophie posted a furious rant about fake sob stories and attention seekers. Daniel left a cryptic message about truth always coming out. But their words fell flat. People had seen the receipts, the photos, the years of evidence. Their lies had no weight anymore. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to defend myself. They were. Then came the final blow. The shelter director called me one afternoon, her voice bubbling with excitement. Emily, we've been nominated for a community service award because of the donations you inspired. And we'd like you to accept it with us at the ceremony. I nearly dropped the phone.
Me?
Standing on stage again, this time as part of something bigger? The night of the ceremony, the hall was grand, filled with city officials, community leaders, and press. I wore a simple navy dress, my hair curled, my heart pounding. When they called my name alongside the shelters, the applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed. For a moment, I felt like all the years of being invisible, overlooked, dismissed had melted away. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the woman who stood tall. After the ceremony, as people congratulated me, I spotted a familiar face at the edge of the crowd. My mother. She looked older than I remembered, her shoulders slumped, her eyes tired. She didn't approach me, just stood watching as others shook my hand. Finally, I walked over. Mom. Her lips trembled. Emily, I didn't know it would come to this. I swallowed hard. Didn't you? You knew when you sent that message. When you told me not to come. When you let them call me selfish instead of defending me. Tears filled her eyes. I thought it was easier that way. I took a deep breath. Easier for who? She had no answer. For a long moment, we stood in silence. Then I said softly, I don't hate you, Mom, but I can't keep living for a family that doesn't see me. Her tears spilled over. She reached out, but I stepped back. Not cruelly, just firmly. And then I turned and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. Not forever, maybe, but for now. Because I had finally learned something. Family isn't defined by blood, or obligation, or how many presents you put under a tree. Family is defined by love, respect, and choice. And I was choosing myself. That Christmas, a year later, my apartment was warm and bright. I decorated my tree, baked cookies, and hosted a small dinner with friends I'd made at the shelter. We laughed, exchanged simple gifts, and for the first time, I felt truly at home. There were no strings attached, no expectations, just love. And when I thought back to that first message, "You're not invited," I realized something. They were right. I wasn't invited, but I had built a life where I didn't need to be. And that was the sweetest gift of all.